dead. YeeHaw!
So there I was, episode number 9, with our special guest, Pester, who was a Navy F-14 pilot and had some pretty darn good stories, wouldn't you say, Repeat?
Absolutely. And boy, we're climbing there, man. We're almost at double digits now on episode counts, huh?
I know.
Yeah.
I lost track. I wasn't sure if this was 9 or 10, but I'm glad somebody's keeping track.
Someone has to, because otherwise the internet would be all confused. And everything on the internet has to be true. So.
Are you saying there are some things on the internet that aren't?
Well, I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said you can't believe everything you read on the internet. I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, you can believe everything that came out of Pester's mouth because he provided pictures to prove some of it.
There you go. He did, including an F-14 that was returned to the government in many thousands of pieces. He was kind enough to leave it in the dump for him, but the government spent money to pull it out of the dump and put it in a hangar.
He actually left
Look
it
through
in the dump on the base turn to final at NAS Miramar, and that's something.
That's
a good story.
Wild. It is a good story.
He's a lucky guy, but like he said, sometimes it's very lucky than good.
Better to be lucky than good. Yep. And he was, he's excellent raconteur and a fun guest to have. So I hope everybody enjoys getting to hear that. Also, at the end, a real special dedication to a commanding officer that Pester and I both had at VT-27, the Boomers. Commander Capt Sinz passed a little over a year ago with brain cancer. So it was sad to hear of his passing, but he was a solid leader and someone who, I don't think I mentioned this in the dedication, Fig, but he was actually passed over for Lieutenant JG.
Is that possible?
Yeah, it's almost not possible, but he was.
I thought that was automatic.
Yeah, and I don't know the story behind that, but he was, and that actually turned out to be a good thing because it shaped his worldview that he used every chance he could to help others with the power of his rank as he gained rank throughout his career. That shaped his worldview, and it made him, I think, a better leader ultimately. So, real solid guy.
Awesome,
and yeah, he'll be missed. So with that, everybody sit back and enjoy episode 9 of So There I Was. This one's called Pester's Dead. YeeHaw. See you next week, Fig.
See you, buddy.
So there I was.
It's how every great aviation tale begins. Greetings, everybody. Repeat here in Lee, New Hampshire. Here today with my co-host,
Fig, and I'm in Denver.
Nice.
And it is a great pleasure to welcome my good friend, Pester. Hello, Pester.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
It was nice being had.
That's what she said.
Pester is a naval aviator extraordinaire. I have had the privilege of going through jet training with Pester. That's where we met a couple of years ago, maybe 3. I don't know.
You?
So tell us, Pester, how did you get into aviation? What got you into aviation, and specifically, how did you get into the Navy, and what was that like?
Well, it was probably more what I didn't want to do rather than what I did do. So what I did want to do. So I was working road construction. I was getting an accounting degree at Portland State University in Portland, Oregon. And I was kind of going, hey, I don't think I want to be an accountant. And we were out putting a taxiway in for the Air National Guard in Portland, Oregon, watching these F4s take off. And I said, I wonder if I can do that. And so the college required us to an interview with 5 different companies. So 3 big 8 accounting firms. There's only 4, I think now. But anyway, 3 big 8 accounting firms, Air Force, Navy. I didn't know the difference between the Air Force and the Navy except spelling. And so I was like, hey, I could spell Navy, and Air Force was 2 words. So probably a little bit too long for me. But anyway, so went through and I interviewed with them. Enlisted officers didn't know the difference. Navy had 2 lieutenants, helicopter pilots. Air Force had a E5. And he said, I told him, I said, hey, don't have time to take your tests. Right now, I'll take them after I get done with finals. And he goes, the E5 says, yeah, sure you will. You'll come back. I'm like, all right, I got nothing invested, so I won't. So anyway, took the Navy test. They said, hey, you're good enough for us. And so that's how it started. Swore in on April 1st. I don't know if that was a joke or not, but swore in on April 1st, about 6 months later. And in I went. So that's how it began.
And what? So that was in 87?
No, just a few years ago. I think it was 17. No, you got
it was 87, right?
87, yeah.
87,
86 is when I started the process. I went in fall of 87. Went to AOCS.
AOCS. So
Officer
any chance
Candidate School.
you're probably behind him. Any chance you ran across a gunny?
Didn't know Gunny. We had Staff Sergeant Massey, United States Marine Corps. Hoorah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was a Hawk missile guy, and Gunny came. He was our battery first sergeant, and he told me some wonderfully fun stories that he got to have down at AOCS.
Was he a drill instructor?
He was, and they got away with a lot more shit because they weren't right close to headquarters. At Quantico and headquarters Marine Corps and all that stuff. They got away with a lot more stuff. He regaled me with a story one day of some kid pretended to try and kill himself and basically scratched his wrist and was bloody. So he had him out there doing jumping jacks and swimming blood all over the candidates next to him. He could see the kid wasn't hurt. And so he was going to have a little fun with it. You're just going, oh, that's awesome.
Beautiful.
So I'll probably have to take the Gunny's name out of that. So statute of limitations probably passed, but
Oh yeah.
But maybe not.
Yeah,
Who knows? Well, excellent. And so you got I know from previous conversation we just had, you went through primary flight training in Corpus.
I did T-34s in Corpus, then bailed out of Corpus because I went down to Beeville and said, it can't be any worse than that. So I went to Meridian, Mississippi for jet training.
Nice.
So T2s and A4s in Meridian.
And that's where we met.
Exactly.
So you guys are both Meridians. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we are Meridians.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And then, so I know you flew the F-14. That's what you got selected right out of flight school.
Yep. Got lucky and got Tomcats,
and that was that your first choice?
Absolutely. Tomcats West. Why would I pick anything else?
Well, why would you?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Didn't. Yeah.
So tell us about that. Flying the F-14. What was that like?
Well, like everybody's dream, right? You go out there, it's like the airplanes you always expected to be perfect, right? They're a little bit dirtier than you dream about, the expectations you have for them. But hey, always having a RIA was fun. Bringing aboard the carrier was always kind of interesting. You always knew you were alive coming aboard the carrier. I don't think that there was a night trap that I did where my legs weren't shaking when I was done just from the adrenaline rush. But the Tomcat was something else. So I did my the RAG replacement air group there at 124 at Fightertown, USA. Now a Marine Corps base. I don't know what they call it, but it's not Fightertown, USA anymore.
It's still Miramar, right?
Marine Corps Air Station Miramar.
Yeah, and the golf course is much nicer because the general liked golf more than the admiral, apparently. So anyway, went to VF-24, transitioned to the A+ model, the bigger motors, GE motors, and then ended up going on cruise, about a year and a half later in the A models as we went backwards. So the TF-30s. We always had a joke. Hey, if it says Pratt and Whitney, it better say Martin Baker. So I get.
So the A+ had the GE engines.
Yeah, exactly.
And the A just had the Pratts.
Yeah,
okay.
But it was not a Pratt's fault. It was the fact that the Pratt was not designed for that airframe. It was designed for the F-111. And as a stopgap, they threw that thing in there and never changed it back. Never went to what the original design was, which was the General Electric engines.
All right. So on your first pump, how many hours did you get, and how many traps did you get? Just get us close. Did you fly a lot? Did you fly a lot?
We flew a ton, of course, getting ready for getting ready for deployment on the Nimitz. But yeah, not a ton. I mean, by the time I was getting out 10 years later, I barely had enough to get an ATP. But as we're, as workups, we're getting ready for workups, got plenty of hours during that time. But yeah, then the other times when you weren't, they weren't hot pumping you and getting ready to go, certainly lean times could be.
All right. So what was flying with the backseater like? Because Pete and I have no.
Right. I'd rather have 200 pounds of fuel. Right.
Yeah, I would too.
Well,
so tell us what that's like.
Yeah, I'd rather have a friend with me. So yeah, we have, it's always
Two sailors.
Right? Exactly. Well, of course, double your chance for a date. But anyway, no, I mean, still great friends of mine. Still can keep touch with those guys, and they're the smart guys, that kept our heads square. So yeah, always, again, fighting over the radar at times, but generally speaking, it's pretty nice to have somebody in the back seat when you're coming up, up the Marshall stack there at night, getting ready to come aboard the carrier with a, 500-foot overcast. So
when you said fighting over the radar, you mean you were trying to use it and he was trying to use it?
That kind of fighting over the radar, right?
All right.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, one thing you mentioned in there, it was ATP, and for listeners that don't know, that's for airline transport pilot, and which is the rating you need to have to be hired at the majors. That's some of the feedback I got from my 16-year-old son, who said that we talk about a lot of things and he doesn't know what they are. Too many abbreviations. Okay, I'll try and clear some of those up.
That's good feedback.
So
hey, thanks.
Exactly.
I didn't know what that meant. They just told me ATP. I had no idea.
I got to get one of those. I don't know what it is, but I got to get one.
I got to
have one. And that's exactly the way it worked too.
That's
hey, right. I need that. Okay. I'll get one.
Yeah. So were you in the same gun squadron the entire time in the fleet?
That's good.
VF-24. Just ran VF-24 for about, I was at Miramar for about 5.5 years, and then went and did operational test up at Point Mugu, VX4/9, the combined 5 and 4 and 5 plus 4 is 9. So, hey, they came up with the VX9. So I did the lantern pod integration up there from an operational test point.
Nice.
How'd you get that gig? Because you're not that smart. I don't understand.
That's exactly right. Because somebody dropped their letter and they said, hey, we can't have a quitter running the show. So, hey, Pete, you want to do it? I'm in.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Rather be lucky than good. And that's the way my career has been.
Yeah. Well, that's I'd rather be lucky than good too.
Yeah.
So up there, you're still when did you transition to F-18 at some point? Did you not?
No, I just got a Hornet qual. Just a Cat 4 syllabus. Yeah. When I was up at Point Mugu. Yep.
Okay. All right. And did you get any hours in that or no?
About 20.
Okay.
Yeah, but I could land that thing way better than I could a Tomcat. 20 hours, 1,200 hours in a Tomcat, 20 in a Hornet, much easier to land.
Weird.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the beauty of that Hornet, right? I mean, that's a magic airplane.
Yeah. Lift vector on and pull. That's what that's what Mahoney told me. Lift vector on and pull. I go, how do you fly that thing? You're dumb as a rock. Lift vector on and pull, bro.
Right. I guess my point is it's a magic airplane. It did a lot of neat stuff for you.
Yep. Well, you saw it all on Top Gun, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Of course.
I know if you pull the speed brakes out, everybody will fly right by. Right? That works.
Of course.
Only in a Tomcat, though.
All
hey,
right.
Speaking of that, have you seen the new version?
Of course, twice.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Once in
I
IMAX.
see it in IMAX,
Oh,
exactly. That's what the second time was in IMAX in Singapore.
Oh.
They loved it too.
Excellent.
But
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't want to go straight to it, but tell me or tell us because I know you've got to have some exciting stories about flying the F-14.
Well, let me put it this way. What was the funniest thing you ever saw? What was the scariest thing you ever saw?
Yeah.
Funniest. Well, I'll have to think about the funniest one,
right.
but
scariest comes right to mind, huh?
well, the scariest is just, of course, what happens to you, right? But again, it's not scary at the time. You look back on it, kind of go, "Hey, that's probably not the greatest thing." But I ended up jumping out of one in the landing pattern at Miramar. I don't know.
Sent you the pictures, Pete. Sent you the
Yeah,
pictures,
exactly.
Pete.
Yeah, take a look at the pictures, right? And by the way, the backseaters, never mind, I can't use names. But anyway, so we're in the.
You can use call sign. You can use call signs.
Yeah, well, my backseater son's playing baseball, Major League Baseball. So good thing.
Oh.
Good thing we both made it out. How about that?
There
Right?
you go. Nice.
Exactly.
Now he's got someone to support him.
No. Exactly. I think his Navy pension's going to do okay.
There you go.
Yeah, so we were out. We were just getting ready we were doing workups, doing FCLPs, field carrier landing practice. For you, those that don't know, night hot switch, which pilot. I have the Rio in the back. Pilot burns half the gas. Other pilot jumps in and then goes around and just turns right downwind into the pattern, and then just is flying the meatball, the lens, Fresnel lens, into a dark runway with the carrier box lit. Well, I hadn't flown for a couple of weeks, was at Top Gun ground school. I tell Bosco, I said, hey, don't assume anything. I haven't been flying for a while. So airplane had just come out of Sidlam. That's where they rework them. I remember the cushy seat. It was like, I sit in this thing. It's like, oh, it's so nice. We take off, flaps are down. Normally you don't take off the flaps down in Tomcat, but because we're just turning right into the pattern, flaps are down, and airplane doesn't need a bunch of trim. It's not bent or anything. And we just turn downwind, make the approach turn, add a little bit of power. I see a left fire light flick. I didn't know it was a left fire light at the time. A little flick, roll rings level, add a little bit of power, and flick, 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 left fire light comes on. So power up on both engines, going around. We're 140 knots, 400 feet AGL, look pretty good. So, okay, we can run through the procedures. Left throttle to idle, air source soft, come back, 130, 120. Said, that's not right. So stage burner and the afterburner in the right engine, airplane yaws a little bit to the left, as you would expect. So a little right rudder, right stick, 110, 100.
That's your pony I see in the back.
Yeah, that was Molly.
Yeah.
She's a St. Bernard. Hello, Molly. So anyway, 100 knots, the airplane just kind of tips one way. I call to eject. Bosco pulls the handle. I never reached for it. So thank God Bosco's there. Good having a back seater, right?
Right.
So anyway, the airplane rolls off to the left. The way the ejection seat works, the ejection seats, the Rio goes first and to the right, and the pilot goes second and to the left about half a second later to the left, so our chutes don't tangle. And also so the Rio can get the canopy out of the way, like Goose.
Yeah, Goose didn't get the canopy out of the way, man.
Well, he did for Maverick. He did exactly got it out of the way.
That's their job.
He cleared it for Maverick. That was the idea, right? So anyway, Bosco got the canopy, and we both got. I barely got a swing in the chute. I kind of remember I saw the frangible bolts go and the canopy go, and the next thing I call it the hand of God, if there's such a thing, just as weight and. So out I come. Next thing I think, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to do my lap belts because it was seat man separation as we put it back. I come out sideways, my chute I come down and I see the ground. Well, the only reason why I see the ground is because the airplane had exploded next to me. I didn't see the flames, I just saw the light and I hit the ground. So I hit pretty hard, popped up. Don't remember doing it. They would say, oh, the training will kick in. I'm like, yeah, bullshit. It did. Coke fittings off, mask off. Don't remember doing anything, and walked over and caught Bosco, or I didn't catch him, but Bosco's coming down and I grab him. Hey, you all right? I said, yep, I'm good. And he goes, yeah, me too. So anyway, where are we? We're in the fucking dump. It's like, and there was actually some people from the landfill, and they said, oh, we like to call this the refuse collection area. Yeah, it's at the fucking dump, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was funny.
Well, at least they didn't have to haul the airplane far when they were done.
Right.
Well, that's one of the jokes. And of course, they hauled it out of the dump and took it into the hangar. Yeah. And I think, probably a statute of limitations. So kind of cool. So all the wreckage is there in the hangar. And a buddy of mine went by and grabbed the airspeed indicator. So it shows,
nice.
So it shows Mach 2.5. Well, on my daughter's 18th birthday, he put it on a medallion and gave it to her for her 18th birthday. I didn't even know that he had gotten that.
Far out.
Anyway, exactly. So that's pretty cool. And given the fact that both my kids want to fly, the son's down at Pensacola right now, waiting to start primary.
That's exciting right there.
And daughter's Russian Guard units right now. She got an interview with F-22 unit in Hawaii. So we're all pretty excited about that. It is just an interview, but hey, it's an interview.
It's
So
exciting.
We're super excited about
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Pete,
So
I'm glad the it's a Martin Baker seat, right?
That's exactly right.
I'm glad that Martin Baker seat worked.
Well, I tell you what, the coolest thing about that is, you go, hey, how did I fuck this whole thing up? Right. And I show up at work. I've been on backboard till 3:00 in the morning. I show up at the hangar with squadron, and the Martin Baker rep is there. And I'm like, boy, I don't know how I screwed that thing up. And he goes, you know what? I don't care. And he's presenting me with the Martin Baker tie. And he goes, and a silkworm for, riding the silk, which I barely rode it, but it worked.
Yeah.
He goes, it doesn't really matter. He goes, I was digging in a hole here years ago where 2 guys were dead. 2 weeks later, these other guys come in and they're both dead and approach turn stalls in the F-14. And he said, so it really doesn't matter what you do. You're here. And he presented with Matai. And of course, now being old, like Fig's age, it's like, I got 2 kids. I've had a hell of a career. I've had a great time. And it's like, yeah, he's probably right. But anyway, it turns out we had a left fire light with a right engine fire. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
did they have them backwards?
No. It looks like what happened was they have what I call a little butterfly light. So they said if you can manipulate 70-80% of them, the light wouldn't work. So what they think actually happened was the heat transferred from the right engine over to the left and caused the left fire light to come on. When we were in the pattern, there was a guy, a Top Gun instructor, riding his bike down Kernaville Road, which is perpendicular to the runways down there. And he was laughing because he thought somebody was putting flares out in the pattern because there was burning metal coming out of the back of the airplane. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So I got a great picture. I showed you guys those pictures. But yeah, so yeah, it turns out that it looked like it was just a burner burned through, or the the bleed air. They'd seen it before in some of the airplanes where you start firing. So when I staged afterburner in the right engine, it opened up the nozzle, exhaust nozzle, and then the afterburner hydraulic pump burned off. So you had a mill-powered engine with an open nozzle. Only gives you about 40% thrust, not enough to fly.
But you pulled the left engine, which you thought had the fire back, which was actually the only engine producing thrust, right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Mostly thrust, right?
Enough thrust. Exactly.
Good Lord.
Of course, Monday morning quarterbacks. Hey, why didn't you land on the left runway? Well, first of all, it was dark. Didn't seem like an emergency. So you talk about being scared. The scariest stuff is coming aboard the carrier at night. I mean, hey, you can say it's not, but that shit's scary because it's coming up. I had no idea this was coming up, and it's a standard emergency. Big deal. Got a fire light. I'll just go around in the pattern, go land on the lit runway, and call it good. Right?
Yeah.
We didn't make it that far.
Right. Well, you sound like you didn't get much of the turn. Well, you leveled your wings. And then you started, coming out of the sky.
Things started going to shit on you.
Yeah. 7 seconds from first indication till we punched out. So,
what altitude were you when you guys punched out? Any idea?
400 feet.
Okay. That's
about 60 degrees angle of bank.
Well, that's not very much.
Yeah. Luckily I'm a little guy. If I was any bigger, I probably wouldn't have made it out. We look at the ejection envelope, kind of like, you're kind of lucky. So again,
you're right.
Lucky than good, right?
Yeah. So, but truth be told, though, you were 6'2" prior to that ejection, and now what? You're 5'5" or 7,
or 9 or 8 or whatever. Yeah, something like that.
I'm taller than you. I look down on you.
Taller than you.
You got to be so much shorter than me. It's not even.
You might look down on me. But that's not because of my stature, asshole.
There you go.
Cheers.
Yeah,
that's good. Excellent. That kind of got out of control there for a second, didn't it, Repeat?
Yeah. When did the adrenaline quit? So this is what time at night? About 10 o'clock at night?
Let's see. That was probably in 93, and it's, what is it? 2022.
Still going?
Still going. Absolutely. I'm still high on life, man. Cat, 9 lives. So
I get it. I mean, I've come in from some flights and spent a few hours unwinding, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't imagine how long it took to unwind from that.
When it unwinds, you crash hard.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was funny. My wife, and hey, by the way, it's still my same wife. But anyway, she had the flu stomach throwing up, and it showed up on the news right away, of course. And the neighbor called up and said, "Hey, did you see the news?" And she's like, "No, what's happened?" Flip on the news. There's an airplane, and they knew which one it was. And I just called her before, said, "Hey, I was taken off." And so it's aircraft 200. One of the funny things you talk about call signs. Have we talked about call signs? But anyway, anyway, so my call sign is Pester, and the guy in the back seat is Bosco. And so aircraft 200. So when the squadron duty officer, the LSOs, the landing signals officers, the guys that are out there waving you and grading your passes, by the time they turned around, my chute was already on the ground. So they thought one of us didn't make it out. So the joke was, "YeeHaw, Pester's dead." So it is great to be in a squadron.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And your wife's loving that. So
yeah, but anyway, she was done being sick, and came down, picked me up at the hospital, and all good. So
that's nice. Thinking of wives and ejections, I actually have a quick story on that.
Ejections
ejections, yes.
Oh, okay.
And wives, not the other thing in wives. So I'm an instructor at the RAG at Cherry Point, and normally the students stood the duty desk, but I had a student who had a doctor's appointment or something come up, and so I decided to be a nice guy and help him out. And the next thing I know, I get a call I'm standing the duty. I get a call from Nightmare, one of our squadron instructors. He goes, "Hey, Repete, 231 has lost a jet up by Raleigh. Give him a call, let him know." Fig, what was the name of the C-130 squadron? Was it?
At Cherry Point there, it was.
Yeah, I can't remember their call sign.
Yeah, I can't.
It wasn't Giant, but it was something like that. Anyway, they're on scene, and they're talking to the pilot. He's okay. Don't know who he is yet. So I call, actually, I don't think I had that much information yet, but I pick up the phone. I call 231, "Duty officer, may I help you, sir?" "Hey, yeah, Repete here down the street at 203. Do you guys know you have a jet down?" "Nope, don't have any idea." So we'll go get your safety officer and launch the mishap plan, because you guys have lost a jet up by Raleigh. At this point, I remember telling him, "No word yet. I'll get back to you as soon as I know something." A couple minutes later, Nightmare calls in. He tells me who the pilot is, that he's okay, and he's talking to the C-130, and that he tells the C-130, "Hey, this is my call sign. Can you call me that instead of mishap pilot?" Because okay, mishap pilot this, mishap pilot. Yeah. Hey, my call sign's this. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I call back to 231. I go, "Your pilot's okay. He's talking to the C-130," and start putting things together. Okay, get out of here. I hang up. Phone rings. It's my wife. And she goes, "Hey, who's Easy 05?
Oh, shoot.
Ooh.
And that's him. And I go, "First of all, why do you want to know?" He goes, "Well, I heard there's a jet down." I go, "Well, okay. You might have heard right. You might have heard wrong." I go, "But why are you asking about this specific pilot?" She goes, "Well, it's not Pete, is it? Who's another friend of ours?" And I go, "No, it's not him. But the pilot's okay. But how do you know this?" Well, one of the other wives down the street was a former Marine, but she was an air traffic controller, and she was the tower controller at Kinston, North Carolina. And she's listening to all this crap transpire on guard. And she picks up the phone and calls my wife and asks, do you know who it is? Literally, the wives network knew that an airplane was down and the call sign of the pilot before the squadron commander knew he'd lost an airplane.
Wow.
That's the wives network for you, boys.
Yeah.
Well, and that that's one of the things. When an airplane goes down, you're just supposed to call home and say, "Hey, honey, how you doing? Yep. What time is it? Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Check the clock.
What's for dinner?
Yep.
What's for dinner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they know that you're okay. But Terry
Right.
found out right away that I wasn't, but I was.
Well, I'm glad you were.
Hey, thanks. Me too. So are the kids. But it was really kind of funny because my son, like I said, he's down at Pensacola waiting to start flight school. And a good buddy of ours down there, Butch, he was investigating lieutenant commander on the thing. And he's going like, "Hey, Pester, come on, just tell us the truth. It was a right fire light, right?" And I'm like, never had it occurred to me that I had dyslexia and thought it was, I'm like, no, it wasn't. And so anyway, they put me in the airplane. I was flying within 6 days. We were on cruise in 10. So it worked out, okay. However much the airplane was, but we had a new airplane the next day, and the skipper and the squadron was spectacular, right? Skipper was like, "Hey, we replaced the airplane. We couldn't replace the crew. So glad to have them all here." That was at the, the officers meeting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty lucky.
Because we've all lost friends in this business, sadly.
Yep.
So funniest
Funniest thing.
Get back to funny, man.
Okay, funniest thing. It gave me a chance to think about it.
Yeah.
Probably when the guy came back from tanking off a 135, we always joked about tanking off 135. That was more nerve wracking than coming aboard the carrier, at least during the day. And the guy came back with the basket. It's
Stuck
about
on
60 it's stuck on the probe.
Yeah.
It's like that's pretty funny.
New call sign, basket.
Yeah, well, there's lots of funny stuff, but being put on the spot, come up with something truly funny is.
Well, how'd you get your call sign?
Yeah. How'd you get your call sign?
I
Pester?
would just say, just stick around for a little while. I was at the squadron for a little while, and they're like, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding me!" I was a little brother, little brother 4, and so I guess I'm not sure if it gave me carte blanche to be who I am, and I've gotten worse, or if it was that it was just bad all along. And so, don't take a lot of things serious, because it's not that fun to be serious. But when it gets serious, it needs to be. But pretty much everything's just pretty much fun and a joke, as Chuck knows.
Hey, you talked about that airplane coming back with the basket hanging on the probe. I happen to remember, actually, I've seen some of the most spectacular flying ever take place behind a tanker.
Oh, I imagine.
And,
it's an air show.
And we're talking to one of the guys that I saw do something. Yeah, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I had already tanked. No, we were out over the water off Cherry Point, and just getting recurrent or whatever. And it was a KC-130, and the basket had a little ruffle on the parachute part.
Yeah.
And so it was
block out all the terrifying parts, Fig. So
it was oscillating a little bit, and I had already fueled, so I was up in the. I was up and away, and I had a great seat to watch this.
Well, why do you think the basket was oscillating? Because he beat it up.
No. It was like that when we got there.
It was.
Yeah, that's what they all said.
Well, so first of all, I got to tell you, Pester, we had to go 20 nozzles and lock the flaps so we could get slow enough and fly the damn airplane, because behind the KC-130 to tank.
Okay.
And so it was kind of, it was a little mushy anyway. And then the probe, it would extend. It was behind you to the left, and then it would extend out. And when it was fully extended, it was about 3 feet to your left, abeam your eyes. So you had to look. Yeah. Well, so I'm watching Repeat, he's coming up there, and the basket's kind of swirling around, and he's getting close. And then he gets the PIO going with the airplane. And then, the funny thing is the probe wasn't moving. I mean, he had the probe dead set in one spot, but the whole airplane was oscillating around the probe. And eventually he got a little too close, and the basket, kind of banged against the canopy a couple times. And then it was like wrapped around the probe for a second. And I thought, oh God, he's going to rip the probe off. He somehow did like an aileron roll over the basket and untangled the hose. And, he lost about 100 feet altitude and then came back up. like, yep. Okay, here we go again. I was like sitting there thinking, holy shit,
boss.
Yeah. You got mad skills.
It was some of the most spectacular flying I've ever seen. Right
mad
there.
Skills.
That guy right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's better to be lucky than good.
There you go. You can say that more than once.
Yeah. We had, I'm trying to think, refueling over the Atlantic, we had a guy, and I don't know if he got the call sign Shredder out of it or not, but he was out there in January and managed to take the basket down the intake, filed it off right down to the nub, but never got the metal, that ball that you push in order to release the fuel. Yes. Never got that, but he shredded the basket with the engine and with the blades of the engine and took it all off. And of course it came out, it was flopping everywhere. He fought the crap out of the engine, flew it back to Cherry Point, and thank God he did, because he didn't have on a dry suit, and it was January over the Atlantic.
Kind of cool.
And I was like, hey, dude, that's why we wear dry suits.
Yeah, that'd been,
because you don't survive in that water out there.
That'd have been self-critiquing real quick.
Yeah, self-correcting.
Well,
and
all those tanking stories, watch going to air shows. I got lucky and got picked to fly at the Miramar Air Show. We were doing a 2-ship, and I'd seen so many guys come by, they're going to do the tanking pass, right?
Yeah.
And they're sitting there trying to get in the basket as they're passing the crowd. So we're down here at Miramar, and we're down low, tanking off of S3 for the demo. And I'm like, I am not going to not be in the basket when we come by the crowd. So I'm sitting there tanked for 45 minutes at about 4,000 feet, bouncing around in the thing, in the lift.
Were you even getting gas? Or you
no,
just plugged in?
No, just plugged in. Just plugged in. It's like, oh yeah. But hey, we came by the crowd fully plugged. It's like, that's the way it's supposed to be. So stupid Pete tricks, we call them.
Man.
Hey, what about motivational passes at the carrier when you guys were afloat? Did you ever do that for the troops?
Oh yeah, we got to do some of that, but probably after the motivational passes, we were dropping bombs out on the Marines out there at 29 Palms, and we'd come by and do some motivational passes down there until we got calls saying, hey, you're kind of messing up the equipment down here, to bring it up just a little bit. So as Top Gun was being made, Tom Cruise said, hey, we need the airplane at 30 feet and we need it 480 knots. And both my son and I go, why so high? Why so slow?
Right.
And some of the Marines can attest to that. They don't know it was us, but that's okay. We were, anyway, motivational passes out in the desert.
So you're flying the Bombcat.
Oh yeah. So
The Bombcat.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was so up at Point Magoo. Like I said, I got lucky. Guy drops his letter. They need somebody working on the lantern pod integration. We took the targeting pod. We, the idea came from Snort out and oh my gosh, a rat out from the east. They came up with this idea to incorporate the targeting pod from the Strike Eagle, put an integrated GPS in it, and give the Tomcat precision strike capability.
So you have just used about 7 terms that you needed to now go back and explain.
What do you mean? Those are all simple. Precision strike.
No, lantern and
Lantern.
et cetera. Yeah.
GPS.
Well, laser. It gave the Tomcat the ability to self-laze and guide precision munitions.
Now, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the cool things, I didn't realize the impact it was going to have. But what would happen basically, I got the pod. I would fly it, make sure that it worked like it was supposed to. It was a fast track program. So all I would do is if something wasn't working like it was supposed to, I would call Lockheed Martin and say, hey, it was designed to do this. It's doing this. We need something. I actually talked to a friend, Ian. His daughter's name was Jillian. We ended up, my wife was pregnant at the time, and we ended up naming our daughter after his daughter, Jillian, with a G. So anyway, he was the engineer out there at Lockheed Martin, and I would just call him up and say, hey, change the software. Yep, sure enough. I mean, we did that a couple of times, and the product was unbelievable. It made the Tomcat the weapon of choice for CAG. They bumped up the max takeoff gross to like 76,000 pounds off the carrier. So you could, carry some nice ordnance out there, and did some good work. So until they retired the Tomcat. But yeah, it was, we did a fun little thing called Tomcat Tales, where guys got up and told their stories. And it was neat because some of the guys that used the lantern pod later on, I'm like, wow, it really had an impact. So it was, so one of those things about your career was like kind of cool that, you got to leave your stamp on it. So
Tomcat Tales. That's a movie, right?
Yeah, it's a documentary. Documentary. It's just a bunch of guys sitting around telling our stories, kind of like this. But yeah, he did one on Thud Pilots, Vietnam, F-105, and then he did Tomcat Tales. He's done some other ones, Viz and Scar, a couple of friends from Navy days. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. Yep, it's same kind of thing as this.
So now you probably got paid for your movie debut, but this isn't a paying gig.
What?
Huh?
Wait, whoa.
No, in fact, you're paying us.
Oh man, you guys didn't talk to my agent apparently.
Well, I wouldn't take his call.
Hey, Terry.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Get after it. Oh, that's funny.
Well, so Pete, you've done some dumb things. It sounds like. What's the dumbest thing you've done in an airplane?
Oh, it's okay. I actually have the answer to that because on an earlier episode, I talked about 2 times in my career I touched the handle. Never had to pull on it. But in the Harrier, what you would do on downwind is you would put your nozzles down to about 40, 50 degrees, and you'd run the power all the way up to make sure that the water was going. We used water injection to cool the engine. So you'd run the power all the way up to make sure that the water was going to flow, so that when you got into the hover, you had the extra thrust you needed in order to make a safe landing. So I did that, and then I quickly pulled I got the water flow, and I quickly pulled my throttle back to idle because I had plenty of forward speed. But because I had my nozzles down, and hence my flaps were also down, the nose started to pitch down on me, and I'm pulling back on the stick, trying to pull that nose up, and it's not coming up because I'm slowing down enough now with my nozzles in like that. I need the reaction control system, which is the bleed air off the engine, off the high, 6-stage Fig, something like that, 6-stage compressor bleed air, which is, it used a reaction control system, which was high pressure air coming out of the nose, coming out of the tail, coming out of the wings tips in order to control the airplane when it was in the hover and had no airflow over the aerodynamic surfaces. So anyway, the nose starts falling through on me, and I don't have enough authority to overcome the flaps and my nozzles being down to get my nose up. I have got a face full of pine trees in eastern North Carolina, and I can't get the nose up. I'm going, holy, and I reach down and I'm touching the handle with my right hand as I'm pushing I've trimmed all the way back, and now I'm pushing the throttle up. And as the throttle came up, I got enough bleed air to pull my nose back up, and I went, I'm never doing that again. That was rookie mistake. That was, I don't know how much time I had in the airplane, but it was pretty new. And
not enough.
Obviously.
Clearly. Well, again, self-correcting, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was probably the stupidest thing I ever did in the airplane. Second only to, were you in Kunsan the day I showed plan for him?
So I was not no, wait,
Okay.
Did you get stuck there?
No.
Okay. No, I
almost
I was
died
not. I was not that day.
So we landed in Kunsan one morning, and as you know, in Korea, I don't think the weather's ever been above about a quarter-mile visibility ever. No. At least at the airfields. You could go there and bomb all day long. The bombing ranges were open, but the airfields, the visibility sucked. And I come in one day and I'm doing an RVL and rolling
vertical landing.
Yep. And at the end, I was still a little too heavy for the performance that I needed. And I don't know how I missed it, but I didn't calculate it right. In my last 30 feet or so, I came out of the sky like a brick shit house, and the airplane bounced, and it showed plan form to the guys standing in ops. And I had full right stick. And for whatever reason, the airplane had just enough RCS and aerodynamic control to bring me back down and put me down on all four wheels at the same time. And I taxied in, and I remember Lefty and Skull were there. They're going, dude, we thought you were going to punch. You showed the bottom of the airplane to us at 15 feet.
Well, nobody understands what you guys are talking about nozzles and all that, right?
Yeah. Well, hold on a second. Harrier guys know.
Okay. Yeah. How many are them?
Well, there's not as many as there used to be.
Correct. So, yeah. So the way the Harrier, quickly then, the version is, the way the Harrier works is it was either on the wing or when it was flying, or the lift was provided by the jet engine. And the way the jet engine provided lift was rotating nozzles. There's 2 cold nozzles off the compressor and 2 hot nozzles off the turbine. Those are the hot nozzles, and they all rotate in unison with a little lever inside of that's just inboard of the throttle. As you pull back on that, the nozzles rotate down, and you would rotate those to various degrees in order to get varying amounts of lift onto the airplane based on the airspeed.
So you could go 98.5 degrees, so you could get 8.5 degrees of reverse thrust if you needed it.
Yep.
Nice.
Or hover 8.5 degrees nose down, and boy, was that uncomfortable.
I've seen that.
Yeah, that's a cool airplane.
Yeah.
You probably would have been a good Harrier pilot, Pester.
Yeah, any kind.
Well,
what?
Any kind. Isn't that the right answer?
Yes, it's the right answer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the right answer.
Right.
Oh man,
what? I got some questions, but I don't know I can ask them.
Ask away. We've got I have a delete button for post edit.
Oh, good.
So I know you spent at least one pump on the Carrier. Did you do more than one?
Just one.
Okay.
10
So
years in, one cruise.
So whilst you were afloat, and by the way, you guys went to Japan, and where'd you guys go?
Yeah, we went Singapore, Hong Kong, Jebel Ali, Thailand, and home.
Did you?
We went to Persian Gulf. We were doing patrol in the no-fly zone.
Okay.
Yeah, Southern Watch.
Any good stories pop up from those the no-fly zone patrols?
Yeah, exactly. Well, one time we got vectored on. This is as good as it gets for my stories. I end up telling other people's stories because they're better. But we got vectored on to a couple of MiG-29s coming south. They were getting close to the 32nd parallel. They said clear to arm, clear to fire. So we'd selected the master arm switch on. We've selected Phoenix, 40 miles. They knew we were there. Turned around and left. So that was kind of fun for a second. Yeah, I know. It's like keep coming.
Come on.
Coming. Somebody just asked me recently, they said, well, how close did they have to get before you're going to shoot? Where I said, probably another 5 to 7 miles, we probably would have let it go. But anyway, that was as exciting as it got. Well, other than, again, coming aboard the carrier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, did you always fly the same Rio?
No, we trade them all the time. I have a different guy.
How many pilots in an F-14 squadron when you floated? How many pilots? How many Rios?
I don't know.
How many airplanes did you have?
I don't know. Those are details. I don't keep track of that stuff. I think
Wow.
we probably had 12 airplanes.
Okay. So
12 each. And then we probably had, I don't know, we probably had 15 pilots, 15 Rios.
Was there more than one Tomcat squadron on that carrier?
Yeah, we had a sister squadron, VF-211. So it was VF-24 and 211.
And then did you have F-18s on there?
Yep, we sure did. F-18s, EA-6s, E-2s, S-3s.
Did you have A6s?
Yeah, we had A6s. Yep.
Oh, you're old.
Yeah, well.
Who was the prima donna squadron? Was it the F-14 guys, the prima donnas? Or was it the Hornet
we were the
guys?
best, but no, of course the Hornets were. I mean, they all, stomping on each other, they climb the ladder. No, it was always great, having all the extra pilots in there. So, and pilots and Rios, extra officers. So that made it much more fun. But mention A6s, that was a funny tanking story since we were talking tanking. We were out tanking one night and we've got clear night on one half, but on the other half, it's clouds. So you're just going around, there's stars and the moon on one side and clouds on the other, and you're on the inside of the turn circle waiting for your turn to tank. And as I go ahead and start to plug, I move back in behind the A6, and the A6 just starts to go vertical. And it's one of those things, getting vertigo.
Yeah.
I was just like, I know he can't do this, but we're going to just keep on doing this. And it worked out, but it's one of those things where, you're getting mind fucked from vertigo, Yeah.
So you plugged in a straight up climb, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't think the A6 could do it for that long, but neither could we.
Well, yeah, I had a similar thing. We were getting ready to go to Norway. Remember that repeat on that NATO exercise, and everybody needed to go get recurrent night tanking. So there was this KC-10 out over the Atlantic off the coast there, and everybody was going out and just getting their plugs before we left. And I was leading flight of 4 out there, no moon night. We're 50 miles out, so there's no, there's no light, and it's just barely stuff. Anyway, I'm home. I'm running up on the tanker, and I got the leans. I mean, I feel like, I feel like somebody is pushing me to the right constantly. And I told these guys, I said, they're on my wing. I said, listen, I'm telling you right now, I got the leans real bad. So I'm just telling you right now, keep an eye on me, And so we join up on this tanker, and I swear the tanker's flying at knife edge, 90 degrees. I don't know how he's doing it. So finally, somebody says, hey, man, tell him to turn on more lights. And I go, hey, that's a good idea. Because all he had on was formation lights and, barely any lights at all. So I says, hey, man, can you turn on some more lights? And it's like, guy goes, you want lights? Okay, watch this. It was like the Battlestar Galactica, bah, 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 and it solved my problem. But then night vision was gone, right, forever. But hey, it solved the leans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Can we,
Well,
should
that's
we turn
awesome.
them loose? What do you think?
Yeah, we should. I just wanted to mention this though, because in the pre-show we were chatting, and so both Pester and I are boomers, which means we went through VT 27 in about the same time frame. It looks like. So
You were way ahead of me, right?
actually not. I did 3 years ground as a ground guy.
I was
Hawk
just looking at how old you were, and I figured I had
Yeah,
to be
there
waiting
you go.
for me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
so-
my gosh. That's
Sorry, Pete. I mean,
Whoops,
repeat.
sorry. He just disconnected, Fig. I don't know what happened.
what happened to him?
So,
Well.
so anyway, yeah. So we were both boomer. I did Hawk missiles for 3 years before I got to flight school,
All
and
right.
so I went through flight school in '88 and '89 myself. So we were both boomers at VT 27, and my son is 16. Just did a week at NFA, National Flight Academy, which is a camp put on by the Naval Aviation Museum Association, and it's a building next to the Naval Aviation Museum. And it's really cool. A lot of the airlines sponsor some inner city kids to go, and it's a week of intense STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So 2 weeks after the camp is over, we're still down in Pensacola visiting, and we're out at a restaurant, and my son goes, "Oh, I just saw the OPSO from my squadron," and he was with the Jolly Ranchers. No, the Jolly Rogers.
Jolly
was his squadron. I love it.
Was that 103 or was it
Yeah,
84?
103. Yeah, well, I think it was VF 103. Yeah.
Well, 84, when 84 got decommissioned, 103, they were sluggers. They took that call sign, Jolly Rogers.
Okay.
Didn't want to let
Gotcha.
that die.
Yeah,
Yep.
the skull and crossbones. So
Yep.
yeah. So that was my son's squadron while he was at NFA, National Flight Academy. So he says, I saw my OPSO. And I said, well, go say hi to him. He goes, I don't want to bother him. Well, he was at dinner. I'm like, okay, well, and a few minutes later, this gent comes up, and he's in his 60s. And we stand up and introduce ourselves. And over a short course, we figure out that we're both pilots. And he said, well, what's your background? And I told him, I said, well, what's yours? And he said, P3's East Coast. And I said, do you know Jimmy Sinz? Sinzy. Oh, he's one of my best friends. And we chatted about him a little bit. And I said, well, what's Sinzy doing now? And sadly, he reported that Sinzy died a little over a year ago of brain cancer. So I'd like to dedicate this show to Sinzy. He is one of the great naval aviators, a great commanding officer, and a great leader. And here's an example of his leadership. One day at VT 27, 2 ensigns had finished their day, and they hopped on their Rice rockets and drove off base with flight suits on. And it took a left turn out of the front gate of NAS Corpus Christi and headed over the high bridge out to South Padre Island Drive. And they were doing, I think, the speed of heat. The afterburners were on, and
High rate of speed.
yeah. So some Navy commander is in like a 240Z, 260Z, and sees them go by, and he sees they're in flight suits, and he's pissed. So he's going to catch them, and he's going to have their ass. So he follows him as best he can. They get several blocks ahead of him and turn into a parking lot. He pulls into the parking lot. He only sees one bike. He goes up, and the bike is still warm. So he knocks on the door in front of which the bike is parked. And an ensign comes to the door in a flight suit with a VT 27 patch on. He's like, is that your motorcycle, ensign? Yes, sir, it is. That was completely unset. That was terrible. And I will see you tomorrow morning in your commanding officer's office, and you'll have your khakis on, and you can consider your Navy career over. So, yeah, Teflon is just beside himself. His career is over before he knows it. And he's like, oh my God, I'm a flight student. I'm done. So the next morning he's standing in the passageway, and he said, it's like a scene out of Top Gun. I want somebody's ass, and I want it now. And he hears the yelling going on in his commanding officer's office, and Sinzy is the commanding officer. So he gets called in. He reports, ensign reporting is ordered, sir. And Sinzy goes, all right, ensign, stand at ease. And he goes, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I know the answer to some of these questions, and I don't know the answer to others. But if I get even a hint that you're lying to me, you consider your career over, and you will not have any more fun or good times in the Navy. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Was that you riding your motorcycle yesterday over the high bridge out to South Padre Island Drive? Yes, sir, it was. How fast were you going, ensign? About 125, 130, sir. He's all right, ensign. Were you exceeding the course rules? Or no, what were the course rules? Sir, I don't understand. Ensign, you know what the course rules are, don't you? In the airplane, sir? Yes. Well, you have to be at 150 knots and 500 feet. And once crossing the beach, turn into the working area. That's right, Ensign. Were you exceeding the course rules? No, sir. Get the F out of my office. I don't want to see you in here again. And let him go. And
Talk
of course,
about
the
great
commander's
leadership.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
His commander's like, you can't do that. He goes, it's my squadron, my ensign. I've put the fear of God into him. He's never going to do it again. And now we've got someone that's going to follow the rules. So get out of my office, Commander. So a great leader who saved a couple careers that day. There was some pressure to find out who that other ensign was at the time. And fortunately, that name never came out. I'll reveal that today because sadly she has passed, but many know the name. Kara Holgren was the ensign on that other Rice rocket that day.
Oh my God, she was fantastic.
Yeah.
She was fantastic. She was 2 classes ahead of me at AOCS. She was the best. Really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Good people. I liked Kara.
Yeah.
And it was
Kingsville. I think she went through in Kingsville.
Did she?
Yeah.
Okay.
She might have, but you had to go through Corpus first.
Had to get Corpus first. That's right.
Yep.
Or Whiting.
Yeah.
She went to jet training.
Some of you lower class guys had to go through Whiting first.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, they let the really good students go to Corpus. The ones that struggled had to go to Whiting Field.
Keep them behind.
The Marines, they kept him close.
Yeah.
So, Pester,
Yes, sir.
we can't thank you enough for being with us today. That was awesome. For
Hey,
coming in and
anytime
sharing
Fig's
that.
around, I'll go anywhere. We always make a joke. I'm flying. I had a great one. I was jump seating on a 737, and I'm just sitting in there. I'm kind of tired coming back from somewhere in Asia, and started talking to the captain. Turns out he's a Marine and don't think much about it. And then it comes up, the airplane says retard on the display. And so I said, how did it know a Marine was flying the airplane? So then I'm like, oh, Marine, what'd you fly? Oh, do you know Fig? And everybody knows Fig. So the joke always is, hey, if you don't know Fig, you're probably not that important. So anyway, it was, it's good time. So anytime Fig calls, I'll be there. I'll jump. Awesome.
You're
Love
awesome,
him.
buddy. You're awesome.
You're unbelievable.
Good stuff.
So on one of these shows, you'll have to have him tell the story of the Hurricane Gussie.
That's a big ask. That's something you got to do in person.
No, I agree. Absolutely. I've practiced and practiced. I'm not nearly as good, but oh my God, that's been funny with my family for years.
It's a true story, It's a true story.
I understand, and I tell it as such.
Tall tale.
Have to get that in an episode soon. But in the meantime, you can get us with some feedback with any questions or comments. You can reach Fig at sothereiwas.us or me by emailing repeat at sothereiwas.us, repeat spelled REPETE. You can reach us at sothereiwas.us/Facebook or sothereiwas.us/Twitter. We love your comments. We love your feedback, and we really appreciate it. In the meantime, everybody, stay safe and check 6.
Mistakes were made.